This video was created with deep respect for the victim and their loved ones. It began with a firing and ended in murder. In the quiet town of Canton, New York, a web of betrayal, manipulation, and violence unraveled over just 12 days. Behind poker games, borrowed trucks, and midnight bike rides, two men plotted a crime that would shock a community and destroy a family. This is the timeline of Kelley Clayton's final days and the chilling orchestration that led to her death. Kelley's life before the tragedy. Kelley was born and raised in Elmira, New York, the youngest of three siblings to parents Elizabeth and Howard Stage. They were deeply respected in their community. Howard, in particular, was a local hero, having served as the chief of the volunteer fire department for many years. Her brother Lenny and older sister, Kimber Joyce, described her as bold, sassy, and full of life. "She was kinda my baby," Kim said. "She liked to dance, she was pretty. She could have modeled. She was a regular on the honor roll, and her involvement as a cheerleader and softball player showcased her outgoing nature." Kelley Clayton pursued a degree in education at the State University of New York, completing her studies in 1998. Her adventurous spirit took her to Las Vegas, where she briefly worked as a cocktail waitress, even wearing a 30-pound feathered headdress. But love brought her back to Elmira in 2000. She married Thomas Clayton, a semi-pro hockey player for the Elmira Jackals, known for his aggressive style on the field and flirtatious charm off it. Who was Thomas Clayton? Thomas Clayton was born and raised in Binghamton, New York, and graduated from Niagara University in 1998. He went on to play forward for 4 seasons with the Elmira Jackals, a minor league professional hockey team. On the field, he was aggressive and charismatic, traits that quickly made him a local celebrity. Off the field, he was known for his charm and a string of romantic entanglements. At one point, he even made headlines for being arrested after dancing naked on a bar table. It was during his hockey days that he met Kelley. Their first encounter was at a game, and later that same night, they crossed paths again at a bar. Sparks flew, and their relationship moved quickly. Within a year, they were married. Not long after, Thomas's hockey career came to an end due to injury. The couple settled in the quiet town of Canton, New York. It was in a wooded area and was pretty secluded. Thomas became the owner of a water and fire damage restoration franchise. Together, they had 2 children, a daughter and a son. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. Kelley embraced motherhood with grace and strength. Their daughter, Charlie, was born in 2008, followed by their son, Cullen, a few years later. While raising their children, Kelley also worked as a waitress, balancing family life with quiet resilience. The night everything changed. Just after midnight in September 2015, 2 officers in Steuben County, New York, responded to a frantic 911 call. What they found inside the Clayton home was beyond anything they'd seen before. One officer's body camera captured the horror. Kelley Clayton, a 35-year-old mother of 2, had been bludgeoned to death in her kitchen. In the days following Kelley Clayton's murder, investigators traced a crucial phone call from Thomas to Michael Beard, placed just before her body was discovered. That call would become the thread that unraveled a chilling conspiracy. Who was Michael Beard? Michael Beard was once employed by Thomas Clayton, first at his personal business and later at ServPro, a company owned by one of Thomas's close friends. But Beard's time there ended in disgrace. He was fired after allegations surfaced that he had stolen from clients' homes. By the fall of 2015, Beard was in a desperate financial situation. He was unemployed, facing eviction from a property owned by Thomas, and according to investigators, vulnerable to manipulation. After his arrest, Beard initially confessed. He claimed Thomas had offered him $10,000 to kill his wife. But he later recanted, offering a different version of events. Still, the evidence painted a disturbing picture. On the night of September 28, 2015, shortly before 11 p.m., Thomas called Beard. Beard then left his home on a bicycle, pedaling to ServPro, where Thomas had left a truck for him. He picked up a friend, Mark Blanford, who Beard said was meant to act as a lookout. Mark would later insist he didn't know a murder was about to take place, only that Beard was planning a crime. Around midnight, they arrived near the Clayton home. Beard entered through the garage using a key provided by Thomas. Inside, Kelley was asleep. Beard struck her twice with a maul handle. She fought back, fleeing the bedroom and tumbling down the stairs. Kelley made it to the kitchen, but Beard followed and continued the brutal attack until she was dead. Afterward, Beard changed clothes, stuffed the bloodied garments into a gym bag, and began disposing of the evidence. He and Mark drove away, discarding the murder weapon, the bag, and the keys in separate locations. Beard returned the truck to ServPro and cycled home. Later, he led police to the discarded items. Thomas Clayton had called 911 just after midnight, claiming he'd returned from poker to find his wife dead. But the child's account, combined with forensic evidence, led police to arrest him later that day. The crime scene was horrific, blood trails from the bedroom to the kitchen. A hole in the wall and Kelley's body showing signs of blunt force trauma from a fiberglass maul handle. There was no forced entry, no robbery. Police discovered that Thomas had borrowed a phone during the poker game to call Michael Beard, a former employee recently fired from ServPro. Beard confessed that Clayton offered him $10,000 to kill Kelley and burn the house down for insurance. He never set the fire. He panicked and fled. This is pure evil. His children are in the home. Did he mean burn the house down with the children inside? The crime scene and early suspicions. Inside, investigators documented a brutal attack. Kelley had been assaulted upstairs, chased down the hallway, and beaten in the kitchen. A hole in the sheetrock and a trail of blood marked her final moments. The weapon, a fiberglass maul handle. There were no signs of forced entry or robbery. There were no broken windows or anything to explain how someone broke in. Despite Thomas's alibi, witnesses saw him at poker game. It was a weekly game hosted by their neighbors, Linda and Greg Miller. Every Monday, friends and neighbors would go to Linda and Greg's to play. And GPS confirmed it. Police were suspicious. Linda later reflected on the poker night. She remembered being in the kitchen when Tom approached her, asking to borrow her phone, claiming his was left charging in the car. She handed it over without hesitation. He stepped into another room, made a brief call, and returned it shortly after. But others at the table recalled seeing Tom's phone with him throughout the evening. That was the thing about Tom. His phone was always close by, no matter where he was. There were also whispers and reports of him being involved in other relationships, suggesting he was looking for a way out of his marriage and family life. The loving husband image was cracking, revealing a much darker picture. A child's courage in the face of horror. Kelley Clayton's 7-year-old daughter witnessed her mother's murder and bravely helped investigators identify the killer. Her testimony became a turning point in the case that led to the arrest and conviction of her father, Thomas Clayton. Gifted in math and gymnastics, the little girl was found at a neighbor's house shortly after the crime. When Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard spoke to her, she said, "A man was hurting Mommy." When asked how she knew it was a man, she replied chillingly, "Because his eyes looked just like Daddy's." That moment changed everything. Recognizing the sensitivity of the situation, Allard brought in a child forensic specialist. The girl was interviewed in a soft, toy-filled room at the Child Advocacy Center. Her shirt still bore traces of her mother's blood. Calmly, she described the intruder. "He came in the middle of the night and started hitting my mom with a pipe thingy. There was blood everywhere." She remembered Kelley screaming, "Run," and being chased downstairs. She even hugged her mother's leg as the attack continued. She described the man as wearing dark jeans, a long-sleeved shirt, and a mask. One, she said, looked like the kind her father wore when hunting. "He looked like my dad," she said. "The size of my dad." But then she added, "It couldn't have been Daddy. Then who would take care of us?" Her testimony was recorded and later played in court. Investigators were struck by her composure. No tears, just quiet shock. Before leaving the room, she asked, "Where's my mom?" Allard and the specialist gently told her they'd find out together. Timeline: September 17, 2015. Michael Beard is fired from his job at ServPro in Horseheads. September 21st. Thomas Clayton and Beard meet at or near ServPro and drive out to the Clayton residence on Ginnan Road in the town of Catton late in the morning before returning to the Elmira area. Beard later texts Clayton that he needs a bike. September 23rd. Clayton parks his white Dodge pickup truck near Beard's residence in Elmira Heights and takes a ServPro vehicle to Ohio for training. Michael Beard is in Wellsburg working a job with another former ServPro employee, Larry Johnson. September 24th. Shortly after midnight, Johnson drives Beard home. But instead of going to his apartment, they go a few blocks away, where Clayton's truck is parked. Beard and Johnson drive out to the Clayton residence. Beard gets out to scope out the scene and returns a short time later. They return to Beard's home in Elmira Heights. September 25th. ServPro employee, Luke Tetrault calls Clayton and asks if he can borrow a four-wheeler for the weekend. Clayton says yes. Clayton leaves Ohio but spends the night at a casino in Salamanca before returning home the next day. September 26th, Tetrault picks up the four-wheeler from the Clayton residence. Clayton drives home from Salamanca and is in contact with Beard several times during the day. September 28th, Clayton and Tetrault agree to swap trucks at ServPro so Clayton can unload the four-wheeler at home and then switch trucks back the next day. Clayton leaves late morning and returns to ServPro later in the day. He leaves Tetrault's truck there and drives a green ServPro truck home. Around 7:30 p.m., Clayton goes to Corning to play poker at a friend's house. Shortly before 11 p.m., he borrows the cell phone of the friend's wife and calls Beard. A few minutes later, Beard leaves his house on his new bicycle and eventually ends up at ServPro, where he gets Luke's truck. He picks up friend Mark Blandford to act as a lookout and drives to Canton. September 29th. Around midnight, Beard enters the Clayton home through the garage with a key provided by Tom Clayton. He attacks Kelley Clayton in her bed with a maul handle and kills her in the kitchen. He then goes back to the truck and returns to the Elmira area, tossing the murder weapon and bloody clothes along the way. Clayton arrives home shortly after 12:30 a.m. and calls 911 a few minutes later. Within a short time, representatives from the Steuben County Sheriff's Office and New York State Police are flooding the crime scene. Meanwhile, Beard returns Tetrault's truck to ServPro around 1 a.m. and rides his bicycle home. Clayton is charged with murder later that day. October 2nd. Beard is charged in connection with Kelley Clayton's death after being interviewed several times by investigators. He claimed he was only hired to set the house on fire for an insurance payout, not to harm anyone. He alleged that he found Kelley already dead, panicked, and fled. The jury didn't buy it. November 4th, 2016. During a 7-week trial, the prosecution presented DNA evidence that linked Beard to the murder, and he was found guilty on all charges. He was given life in prison without parole. He is now incarcerated at Auburn Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in New York. February 23, 2017, Thomas Clayton's trial started. Thomas Clayton also pleaded not guilty. His defense argued that the evidence against him was purely circumstantial. The district attorney knew that he needed to make sure the jury saw Thomas' motive for having Kelley killed. Several witnesses were called, including women that Thomas was having affairs with. One of these was a life insurance agent who testified that she and Clayton had a threesome with another agent. After that, Thomas was more open with her, often dropping by and talking about his marriage, calling Kelley lazy and a bleep. She testified that Thomas would say that he couldn't consider a divorce because Kelley would take everything. The agent also offered up another nugget. About a year before Kelley was murdered, Thomas had taken out a life insurance policy on Kelley, and he had been considering upping the payout to over $1 million. The prosecution introduced a cell phone data expert who revealed a troubling pattern. In late September 2015, Michael Beard and Thomas Clayton had been in close proximity on multiple occasions, far too often to be dismissed as coincidence. The expert also testified that Beard had communicated with Clayton using 2 phone numbers that weren't registered to Clayton himself. One belonged to Linda, a friend from the poker game, and the other was a landline connected to a nearby mechanic shop. But the prosecution laid out a damning timeline, connecting the phone calls, the financial motive, and the testimony that painted him as a manipulative and cold-hearted planner. The jury agreed. Clayton is found guilty by a Steuben County court jury after a 7-week trial. He is also later sentenced to life in prison without parole. His attorney filed an appeal in April 2019. The New York State Court of Appeals rejected the appeal. Clayton is serving his sentence at Sing Sing Correctional Facility in Ossining, New York. Kim and her mother arrived at the Clayton home less than an hour after police. "We were wailing," Kim recalled. "I was throwing up on the side of the road. I can't even explain that feeling." This is the story of Kelley Clayton's final days and the investigation that revealed a betrayal no one saw coming. In the devastating aftermath, Kelley's family has shown incredible strength. Her sister, Kim, and her husband immediately took in Kelley's 2 children. "Those kids are what get me up every day," Kim has said, dedicating her life to giving them the love and stability they deserve. The community rallied around them, tying purple ribbons, a symbol of domestic violence awareness, throughout the towns of Elmira and Corning. The children would see them and say, "Purple for Mama." In a letter to the court, Kelley's daughter wrote, I feel like Dad is a coward because he asked someone to hurt my mom. The children have no contact with their father. Through all the pain, Kelley's family is determined to honor her memory. They remember her as bold, full of life, and deeply loved. Her mother, Elizabeth, got a tattoo in her honor and cherishes her time with her grandchildren. And Kim, who is now raising them, has a powerful message for the man who orchestrated this tragedy. "You took her life, not her light," she said. "Her light will shine forever through her children, through me, through our family. And we'll be okay." Kelley Clayton's story is one of unimaginable loss, but it's also a testament to a family's unbreakable strength and the enduring power of a mother's light. In 2017, the Elmira Jackals hosted a domestic violence awareness night in Kelley's honor. Her children dropped the first puck. This video was created with deep respect for the victim and their loved ones, and you'll notice that the faces of children have been blurred. This is a deliberate choice made out of respect for their privacy and protection. While the story is important, I believe it's equally important to safeguard the identities of minors, especially in sensitive cases. Thank you for understanding and supporting ethical storytelling. I've included real images only where appropriate and used AI narration to help tell the story clearly and consistently. Thank you for joining me in honoring their memory. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more content. We'll see you in the next one.